everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Eggert. Our guest today has taken the experience of creating large corporate CEO communication strategies to now support small and mid-sized business leaders looking to clearly communicate their vision. We're going to dig into all that and more with my friend, Stef Tschida. Stef, welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here, Aaron. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Are you in beautiful Becker, Minnesota?
I am at home in Becker, Minnesota today. Yes.
Yeah, good. Well, from our farm to yours, happy Friday or whatever day we're going to launch. Happy Thursday. Let's just say happy Thursday, even though it's actually Friday.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Good. Well, before I get started and we start sharing your journey with our listeners, I want to make sure that I know how to refer to you. Will you please share with me your pronouns?
Sure. She and her.
Awesome. Fantastic. So share with me and remind me, how did we get connected here? Was it Dan and Heather?
It was Dan Neitz. Yes. So many good things in my life. Those roads lead back to him all the time.
Yeah. Well, he's such a good guy and he's another podcast. He was on a podcast episode and he's got a fantastic story, but he introduces me to so many amazing people and I'm so happy that our paths have crossed. I'm super pumped to have you on the show.
Agree. Hey, I also have to say, I think when you mentioned Heather's name, Heather might have been the one who actually made the intro, but it was Heather and Dan and I on a call where they were both saying, I should meet you. And so many good roads in my life lead back to Heather too, that I shouldn't be surprised that I even crossed wires on that. So for what it's worth, I think Heather was definitely involved.
Yeah, let's give them a shout out. So Dan and Heather from Heather P. So I love it. All right. So let's dig in. I would love to talk to you about your journey here. So you grew up in rural Minnesota.
I did. I grew up in Long Prairie. To this day, there is one stoplight in that entire town. And, that stoplight was put in when I was a kid and we thought that was a really big deal. And there have been no additional stoplights since then. So, and it was an amazing place to grow up. It was a really thriving small town at that time. And I just absolutely loved it.
Yeah. Did you talk to me about your family dynamic, parents, siblings, things like that?
Yeah. So I have two parents who are married, and I have a younger brother, just a little bit younger than me. And my dad was one of just a couple dentists in town. So I figured out really early on that if something happened at school, that I maybe didn't want him to find out about it, he would find out before he came home from work at the end of the day. Right. They're just one of those classic small towns. And whether it was a patient coming to see him or just people talking, it was very much that environment of learning early on, okay, you're not going to get away with anything. Mom and dad are always going to find out because dad's seeing all these people all day long,
Yeah. Did you have any desire to get into healthcare as when you were growing up?
I get asked that a lot, and I would say no. Science, math, those were not my favorite classes in school.
Yeah. How about your siblings?
So I have a younger brother, and he's an interesting character.
Yeah.
And
all right. But he's not a dentist.
No, he is not a dentist.
All right. Yeah.
Nobody followed in that path, actually.
Yeah.
Sadly for my dad.
Interesting character, no dentist. All right. We'll check that box. So what were what kind of shenanigans were you into when you were a kid? Were you into sports, or what were some of the extracurricular type of things that you really focused on?
Yeah. So I was really big into cheerleading. I loved doing that. And we took that ourselves very seriously in my little small town doing that. And worked hard at that. And then I was a very hardcore band geek person. And I just shared this the other day for a fun fact I needed to come up with about myself in some meeting, that I can twirl flags, batons, and rifles. I was the marching band, loved that, and just spent all my time doing that in a small town where there wasn't a lot else going on. Had buddies, and we would work on little routines together and twirling stuff. To this day, I'm constantly picking things up if I can and twirling them around.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
And, based on what you do now, did it start at an early age where your creativity came out in writing and on the English side of things?
Yeah. So English was always my favorite class in school. And my parents, so I loved to read and I still love to read. I can just disappear for hours, and I could back then too, and just read everything I could find. And so my parents were really great about any book I ever wanted, like they bought for me. They would buy me as many books as I wanted. And so at like Babysitter's Club was the big book series like back then, right? For kind of tween girls. And I would sort of try to copy those books by writing my own stories and taking like the first and last names of my various friends and flipping them around and making them characters all of their own, and like writing stories from a young age. And so, I didn't really know exactly how that would play out, and I couldn't have seen that it would amount to this kind of a career specifically, but I always knew that I was kind of on that English words are my friends, numbers not so much kind of side of things.
Have you gone back? Did you save any of those stories that you wrote, and have you gone back and read them, or are they long gone?
Maybe my parents have them. I don't know. I have not seen them in decades, so I don't know if they still exist or not. That's a really good question.
Yeah, you gotta maybe around the holidays tap into that and see if you can get your hands on those. That'd be a great question to ask him anyway.
That's so true. Yeah,
that'd be fascinating. Yeah. So you so both of your parents went to Iowa State. So did you even have a choice?
I did not. I did not, truly. And that's okay, because they did a really good job of brainwashing me from a very young age that that's the only place I could ever, why would you ever want to go anywhere else? And, my grandparents, both sets of grandparents lived in Iowa growing up, but one set lived really close to Ames. And so we would go walk around campus every spring and then go visit them. And it was always just this magical thing we got to do. So there was truly, I did not apply to any other schools but Iowa State. Cool. And I look back now and I always think like, could I have pushed that? Could I have questioned that? But I just didn't, because they, like I said, they did a really good job of brainwashing me to go there. And I loved going there.
Yeah, it's a great campus. And I think that, they've got a really great culture there. I ask this of anybody that went to Iowa State or Iowa, is in your world, was the rivalry real?
Yes. When I was growing up, this might not be super sportsman-like truly, but we were like sort of taught to like boo and hiss when we saw any Hawkeye thing of any kind, like a bumper sticker or a t-shirt on a person. Like that was a very real thing for our family. And so, yeah, it's so true. And what's funny about that is my dad actually went to Iowa for dental school. So he spent just as much time at Iowa as he did at Iowa State, but he like doesn't talk about that. That part's like didn't happen.
That was just a blip for him. He just wanted to skate over that. Yeah, I think that, so it's always rooted in sports type stuff, right? Just because that's what I think kind of drives the rivalry. Did you go to a lot of sporting events, and were you a big part of that whole community, or was it just at an arm's length?
Yeah, no, I did. I wish I would have gone to more looking back, right? Like, you realize when you're not there anymore, what a unique and special quick time that was. And like, my God, why wasn't I at every football game, every basketball game? But I went to a good, half dozen football games a year and enjoyed that. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's a good amount. Well, we have had so many different guests that are huge Iowa fans, and I just want to clarify this. Like, it is sportsman-like to be able to boo and hiss at different, especially in Iowa, because Darren Lynch would definitely boo and hiss at a Cyclones bumper sticker or something like that, because he is a rabid Iowa fan. So we should be very careful about getting you two in the same room.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was so during college, you obviously knew that you wanted to get into journalism, and writing was a big passion of yours. What was probably the coolest internship that you did when you were in college that really helped kind of solidify that you were going to get into the business world and use this as your skill?
Well, I have an interesting story actually about that. So I did think that the path that I needed to take to to pursue this initially was kind of that traditional journalism path of like becoming a newspaper reporter. So I did some internships with that. I worked for the campus newspaper at Iowa State, which was, a daily paper with a large circulation, at least to me, having come from the size of town I did. And I really thought that was going to be my thing, but I had an interesting experience that sort of put me on a different path late in college. I made kind of a quick little pivot there. And the experience was this: every time a student at Iowa State died, often unexpectedly, right? We would do an article on that student. And I completely understand the value of telling each student's story and sharing about their life. But I didn't want to have to be the one to write those stories.
Right.
Like, I didn't want to have to call their family. I didn't want to mess with that. And sure enough, my sort of turn came up to do just that at some point. And I had to call the parents of a student who just died. It was awful. I hated it. And so and I had a couple other experiences kind of like that, where I just thought, I don't know if I have the stomach to do this reporter thing, but I love writing and I love telling stories. And so like, what could that look like? How might that look different? And I just feel like luck, I stayed within the journalism school, but I sort of pivoted to kind of a PR track really late in college, honestly, but was able to pull it off. And then, so to answer your question, I got an internship at Habitat for Humanity in Des Moines. It was kind of like a corporate central organization that served all the different like branches of Habitat throughout the state. And that was like kind of just the first time I thought, I can apply these storytelling journalism type skills to help a company, not write for a newspaper. So there was a big Wells Fargo volunteer population in Des Moines. They would send volunteers out to help build these houses. And I got to interview the families who were buying these houses and post their stories, profile piece on them in the houses to help volunteers better to connect with who they were helping. And it just was this like magical just shift on very much the same work, but kind of applied in a different way. And I was hooked after that. I knew that corporate communications was going to be what I tried to do.
Right. But that is a complete, like, total opposite of reporting on deaths versus, what I would look at as almost like a rebirth or new life for some of these people that are taking over these homes.
Totally. And, even though just applying it to other contexts within corporate, I realized I don't want to be the one asking hard questions of people, but I want to be the one helping people prepare to answer hard questions being asked of them, right? So it's like I have that brain and I can almost play the internal journalist, which is often how we describe ourselves when we're doing communications work in a corporate setting. I can think in that way, but I can help them be on the firing line to answer those questions. I don't want to be the one asking them. It's just not really consistent with my personality.
Right. And I think that, there's probably you have, because you experienced that and had to do some of those tough things, that you probably see people that now that have made that their career in journalism. I think I got to believe that there's just another level of appreciation for what they're able to do and how they're able to kind of tuck away the emotion and just report.
It's incredible. It's something that I am not meant to do, but I still have so much admiration for people out doing that work. And especially with the changing landscape that's happened since I was in school trying to do it, just, they're doing so much more with so much less. And I mean, they're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your first gig out of college?
So I went to Carlson Marketing Group 2 days after graduating from college. It was my third internship and I had graduated. So I wasn't super happy to be having to intern again, but that's how I was able to break into corporate comms. Like it just wasn't super easy. And so that was an amazing place to learn and grow. And I did that for 9 months and really worked hard to turn that into a job. And so I went to a different arm of Carlson and I stayed there 10 years. So it definitely worked out for me.
What were some of the roles that so 10 years, your career is going to evolve, right? Like that's just the nature of the beast. And so what were some of the roles that you did? What was your favorite role that you did there? Whether it be the thing that you transitioned you into do what you're doing now, but what was the thing that you just had such a passion for?
It's interesting. I started as an intern. I left as a director 10 years later. So that was just a massive change, right? I don't think I interviewed for a single job, but I had a bunch of jobs there, which was interesting when I decided I needed to leave and didn't have a resume at all current. That's sort of a different story, but gosh, I had so many cool, wonderful jobs there. What was interesting about Carlson, you would assume it was this huge, well-oiled machine where there was just like so much resource, but there wasn't, in a kind of a good way. I got to wear a ton of different hats from a communication standpoint. I might own like public relations and client communications, and eventually put internal comms into that. And so, favorite role, I guess, just any of those roles, and it does bring me to what I do today. Any of those times where I got to focus on more than one audience, more than one vehicle or channel for communicating, and maybe take the same thing, but apply it in different ways across all these different, vehicles, and talk to different audiences differently about the same piece of content. Those were always super fun. The part of Carlson I was at was truly global. So I had direct reports in Paris, and a boss in London, and a boss in Geneva at one point. And there was some really fun international travel that came with that, which before kids was pretty cool. Right. And travel is a crazy beast by nature of what it is. Like, there are very few things in this world that don't affect travel. So there was the volcanic ash cloud, there were data breaches, there was like horrible, terrorism events. But what a good learning ground for a young person to like figure out how to communicate these things. It was incredible.
Where was the coolest place you went?
Lisbon.
I've been to Lisbon, actually. Wow. So why Lisbon?
I loved Lisbon. So it, for me, felt like Spain and Italy had a baby, and here we are, this is Lisbon. Yeah. Like, it was just so cool. And just that Portugal was a place I never thought I'd ever get to go. It wasn't a place I'd even thought about going. And so Paris and London are amazing. Love them. But that was just a little off the beaten path in terms of like what was on my radar. And I just felt like my eyes were open to how cool it is. I know Lisbon is just having like a huge moment. It's probably completely, it's so different, so popular now. But that was a good 10, 15 years ago. And it, it was a certain way then. And I just absolutely loved visiting there.
Yeah, so I went there probably 10, 15 years ago myself. I just felt like it was just, first of all, I have to believe with the creative mindset, you had to appreciate the art there is just amazing. And the tile that still is maintained, hundreds of years later, and their respect for history is just so different. It just was amazing. And I felt like people were really, I felt like they were really welcoming too. Like, I felt like I didn't even really feel like it was something that we clearly we're American, and they were very welcoming of us. And I thought that was really fantastic too, because it's not always like that in different parts of the world.
Agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you spent that much time at Carlson. What was your catalyst for getting out of there?
Yeah. So I got to a point where I was running on constant adrenaline with all these like terrorism incidents, all the craziness, just literally nonstop. And it was fun to travel internationally, but then here comes my first son, and I'm leaving for a week at a time, and he's 5 months old, and that's hard. But I got to a point where that constant adrenaline, that constant stress, like started kind of taking a physical toll. Actually, I was breaking out in hives on my face for 18 months and couldn't figure out why, and went to a lot of different doctors about it. And I will say too, I didn't know how to put boundaries in place with that work. Like, I'd never had to do that before. And I love to work, and I do get really sucked into, all the opportunity. And so I just didn't control that for myself. It was a really hard lesson that I had to learn. And that I continue to learn in different ways, different chapters. That lesson kind of keeps cropping back up, unfortunately. But so bottom line, I just got to a point where I'm like, I've been here so long, I should probably be smart anyway, and manage my career and go do something else. And I just got to a point where I just I knew I couldn't be the number one, number two, number three person on speed dial when stuff was going wrong. I wanted to kind of bury myself a little further down into a bigger organization and just have some more balance that way.
Yeah. So where did you transition from or to then?
Yeah. So I was lucky enough to get hired at United Health Group, which to me, especially at that time, was just like the promised land. Like, oh my gosh, wow, could I go from growing up at Carlson and having one real like job kind of to go, do work at that level. It was just such an amazing break for me, I felt.
What was your primary responsibility when you were at UHG?
Yeah, I had 3 jobs in 3.5 years there. So it was a crazy ride. But I got hired on to do editorial content for internal communication. So storytelling, kind of elevating different employee stories on the intranet, kind of running content strategy for the intranet there for all of their employees across Optum and United Healthcare. It was really cool and really fun.
Yeah, cool. And then what was the last thing that you did before you left?
So the last thing I did there was I was supporting the CEO and the president, 2 different people of United Healthcare with internal communications. So I was part of the team that was doing the all employee meetings, content for those, other like facilitating the CEO, connecting with leaders and keeping them informed, and a whole bunch of other things at that executive level.
What is that even like? UHG is a monster, and I don't think even people around here even know how big of a monster that is. And that has to be just a crazy world.
It is a crazy world. Yeah. I mean, incredible, smart, driven people like you would not believe. I had many times looking around like, ooh, I better sit up straight and like get my act together because these people are incredible. And it's intense, it's always on. And again, by this time I had another little baby, I think my daughter was like 5 months. That seems to be my sweet spot, is like, I get these crazy jobs when my kids are each 5 months old, but she was pretty young, and, it was a lot to juggle. And yet it was also just this incredible opportunity where I like, can't believe I got to do that. Like on paper, that is everything that you think you want, when you're pursuing a career in corporate communications. And what an incredible learning ground. I mean, it was such a gift.
So if anything goes sideways in the world of the CEO or president, are you like speed dial and we need to put a plan together on how to communicate this, or and regardless of what time of day it is? Or I'm trying to wrap my head around the gravity of this.
Well, that was much more my reality at Carlson. It was like the phone was ringing at 11 at night or whatever. At UHG, I'm interfacing with the CEO, but there are others, my boss, their boss. And so, I'm not like, I'm getting pulled in to help do the work and like execute when things are crazy. But that like first call is to people higher up than me, which is very much exactly what I wanted.
Yep. I couldn't agree more, right? I can't even imagine what that would be like. But then, to be able to work under a pressure situation and be part of that team, I can only imagine that informed a lot of, what you do now. What was the catalyst then? One of the things I always like to talk about is like, what's that paradigm shifting event to where you want to start your own business? And so what was that light switch that flipped for you where you're like, you know what, it's time for me to go out on my own?
Yeah. I had for years placed a lot of confidence and like just really valued that biweekly paycheck. That was security to me. And I think when you are in big corporations long enough, over time, you see really good people leave for no real apparent reason, not of their own will. And I just started to look around and go, I'm starting to feel like putting all my eggs in any one basket, I don't care what company it is, just isn't like the smartest way to manage things over time. And sometimes in big companies like that, with just all the shifting sands, it really does feel like it's not a matter of if, but when, like your turn will come up at some point. Right. And so I just got to a point where I started to feel like, hey, I kind of want to control my life a little bit more. Like I'm in this role where it's demanding. They were as wonderful about balance as they possibly could have been, but the job is the job, right? And I just started to realize, like, I want to spread out my risk a little bit. I want to control my life a little bit more. And I think, and it was just like this epiphany, I don't think I should work one place anymore. And it just really almost feels like it was like a download from the universe, because that was just not even remotely on my radar until kind of that time. And it was, it was kind of in the middle of the year I spent supporting those two high-level executives, just because it's intense. So it took me a little while to kind of plan and figure out how I was going to make that happen. But that was really the goal. And I will say, having that variety of work I love, and I'm really happy to have that in my life, but even just the variety of industries now, especially with COVID, I had clients die and go away in COVID because of the industries they were in. And I had clients thrive and grow. And I just kind of rode that wave.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to so many people who kind of want counseling or coaching around maybe doing something like this, who've been impacted, throughout the pandemic with being laid off. And it's just given me this new perspective of, man, I feel like I was lucky to kind of make that decision when I did, because I think that it's served me well.
Yeah. So share with me I alluded to it at the beginning. I think I did an average job of explaining what you do as a little bit of an opening, but share with me what you do.
Amazing. So I've got kind of two main things I do. So the first is corporate communications consulting. And what that really means is I help small and medium-sized businesses grow by building relationships with the people who matter to their success. And we do that through clearly communicating with them. And there's a lot more that goes into that than you might think, but it's, you can really build or break relationships based on communication. It's so fundamental to everything that you do. So that's kind of the corporate side of what I do. And I really specifically at this point serve small and medium-sized companies. So it's taking that big corporate experience and applying it in different situations. But I really am passionate about that being my focus. Because there is the variety and the ownership available, in those situations. Mostly I'm the outsourced single communicator, and I really love that. And I feel like I'm truly helping. I'm not like a tiny cog in a huge, huge machine anymore. I'm right at the table with these CEOs and helping them, making an impact on their business and seeing that. And it's so rewarding. I absolutely love it. And then same very fundamental communications skills I apply to a different audience, more consumer facing, which are high school students who are applying to college. And I help them with their essays that they have to write as part of the admissions process. And I don't even remember if I wrote an essay to get into college at Iowa State, but these students are amazing. And they're writing 10 and 12 essays sometimes. And then they're interviewing for scholarships and all of this. And it's kind of uncanny how the very same things that you do in a corporate setting to help a company position itself well, or a CEO, they directly apply to students applying to college. And it's super fun to have that variety, but apply the same thing just to a different context. So I love that part of my business, and I'm really trying to grow that. I just love working with these kids.
Yeah. And I think, with the amount of, this is a great idea, by the way. I just have to say this. And when I found out that you did this, I just thought to myself, what a genius idea, because I'm not a parent, but I have parents. Parents spend so much money trying to get their kids into the schools that they want to get into. And this is an area where I didn't even know that something like this existed, and it's cost effective. So you're able to make a living and serve a purpose for a cost effective, reasonable price. And to me, that's just melding two amazing worlds. That this is a no brainer.
I think so. I mean, at one point I was just sketching out like who are different audiences besides kind of the traditional companies who I could serve with the very same skills. And there were a lot of different audiences I wrote down, but for whatever reason, again, kind of universal download, this idea of like kids applying to college just jumped off the page. And again, having not even remembered if I wrote an essay myself, I'm not even sure how kids applying to college even got written down on the piece of paper, much less jumped out, because it wasn't really maybe on my radar too much. But it did. And it's been so fun to do that work.
So when you started your business and you said, all right, I'm going to go out and I'm going to chart my own course, was the first iteration of your business a little bit of like what it is now? Or was it just you learn along the way and maybe trip up a little bit and then change and then trip up a little bit and then change? So there's just an evolution, or do you feel like you stayed pretty true to the essence of what you wanted to create at the beginning?
I love that question. I have not done it the smart or easy way at times. So what I did I started this, the work I was doing at the beginning is not the work I'm doing today. the work I did at the beginning was basically me stepping from full-time big corporate, that arrangement, to 1099 big corporate, same stuff at the end of the day. And that got me started. It definitely, paid the bills, but I quickly realized, this is kind of more of same. Like, yeah, I own my life now. Yeah. Okay. There's some things that are better, but I'm still doing this work that, if I'm being honest, I'm not truly passionate about. I'm not truly seeing the difference I'm making. So I sort of kept that going, like, okay, we pay the bills this way, but we're going to start pivoting over here, serving smaller companies, networking with those kinds of people, figuring out what they need. And that's what I've been working on. And I'm fully there now, which is super exciting, but I just never seem to take the easy way. So, I didn't quite design this with the end in mind at the beginning. I just sort of jumped into what was easiest and what was right in front of me, and then had to fix it as I went.
I think if anybody were to answer it any other way, I call bullshit. Like there's right. Like there is iterations, and you had this idealistic thing in your head, and then all of a sudden you have to go and execute on it, and things are going to be a little bit different. And so I think iteration and evolution is what business is all about. And so thank you for being honest.
Oh yeah.
Do you feel like, so you support small business, small, mid-sized business CEOs and their communication strategies. Do you feel like a CEO?
That's such a fascinating question. I can say yes to that.
Cool.
I've been embracing my identity as an entrepreneur and a business person, which, has taken time, because I think of myself as a communicator, and I'll do whatever I need to just do the communications work. Right. But that's who I am. And increasingly I'm shifting how I think about that. And it helps me relate to my clients way better. So yeah, I feel like a CEO.
All right, good. I just wanted to make sure that I wanted to hear that come out of your mouth, because you should, right? Because you are the founder of a business, and you should take great pride in the fact that you are the CEO of your business. So, I'm hoping that, do you think that you do a good job of the things that you do and the time that you spend with other CEOs, that it rubs off on you a little bit to think a little bit differently about how to manage your business?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I was just in a conversation with a fellow business owner the other day, and just it's the commiserating of okay, it's not just me that feels like I make every mistake in the book, and it's, you learn through so much trial, mostly error, all this stuff. And yeah, it's just, there's so many things that I can actually relate to when I'm talking to other CEOs that, you start to kind of put that identity on for yourself too. But for me, it has taken time to embrace that part of what I'm doing here.
Good. What does the future look like for your business? What do you want to do with it in the next 3 to 5 years?
Oh man, that's an amazing question. It's the big question. I am trying to grow my business. And again, I might not have said that the first year, but I'm really stepping into this idea that I can help more companies, and I want to help more CEOs and purpose-driven businesses. I want to give more work to more people who can support me, and I can support them on my team. I want to grow my team and enable more people to tap into flexible work with awesome people and awesome clients. I want to serve way more students than I am. So I'm still young in that part of my business, and I've got a lot of ideas and plans for really growing that significantly. So, and I even I did a little kind of year in review graphic. It's sort of, kind of just summing up what 2021 was. And even just a year ago, I was nowhere near where I am right now. I would never have, and maybe those numbers that are on that grid look small to others, but they look pretty big to me. And that just represent a huge leap. And so I've thought to myself, man, if that sort of happened kind of unplanned in 1 year's time, what will this look like in 3 to 5 years? That really, the sky's the limit. And that's so exciting to me.
Yeah, that is exciting. All right. The last question I'm going to ask you about you before we get into 9 questions, which are also about you, but just different. You went from living in the city-ish, right? And decided to make a big jump to move up. And like we talked about at the beginning, move to Becker. So, I went through that process, but that was years ago. That was 8 years ago or so. This is pretty recent for you. What was the big catalyst for that? And how much do you love living in the country?
Yeah. So So during COVID, as things were shutting down, literally right then, my husband got probably like kind of a once in a career opportunity in the golf course business that he's in St. Cloud. And I loved my life in the Twin Cities. I had no intention of going anywhere. I loved our home, et cetera, et cetera. But this was an awesome opportunity for my husband. And we had always sided on with my career and needing to be in headquarters locations to do what I do. And suddenly I don't really have that excuse or that reason anymore. I can technically work from anywhere. And am I really going to tell him he doesn't get to do this really amazing thing he wants to do? Yeah. So I was not ready to move all the way out to St. Cloud though, because I still very much want my work life to be centered in the Twin Cities. And so that's how we picked Becker. It's kind of halfway.
Yeah.
It's small. We grew up in a small town. We thought that might be fun to try, fun for our kids. And there are things I absolutely love about living here. There's things I don't also, but I'm sitting on a bunch of land. It's super quiet, and just boring in kind of a nice way. And there's just space to breathe here. So I'm very much embracing kind of like my small town roots that I grew up with and coming back to those, which is really interesting because I loved living in Brooklyn Park. I loved that too. So there's so many sides of us, right? We can be happy in so many different ways.
Well, you and I, during our prep call, we talked a little bit about we have so much in common from that respect too. Right. And so, I live in the country, but I always say I like to make my money in the city and spend it in the country. Yeah. But there's another part of you that you told me that you identify as an introvert, even though I feel like doing this podcast, I feel some extroversion. So I think we kind of agree that maybe more like ambivert, like kind of floating in the middle. So that, for me, like I'm pumped tonight to where I don't have to leave the house because we're going to get a snowstorm and I just want to have a fire and a glass of wine and watch a Christmas movie. So yes. Is that your jam?
Perfect night. Yeah. No, I love connecting with people. I'm more of like a one-on-one or small group person. Big parties, big groups will do nothing for me. So I can do the extroverted thing for sure. But if I'm looking for like, how do I get to spend a night any way I want? It's exactly what you just described. It's no people or just like my kids and my husband. And it's like about as calm as you can get. Cause I just feel like I need to recharge from all the projecting that I do all week long as I'm working with people. Right.
Right. Yeah. I'm with you on that. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm so glad that you were able to share your story. I want to get a little bit more insight into you, and that's why we do the 9 questions. So can you please confirm to me that you have no idea what I'm about to ask you?
I have no idea.
Are you mildly nervous?
No.
Okay, good. All right. Hey, a good answer. All right. Question 1. What is your favorite hobby outside of, I'm going to call it I have a feeling like some of your hobbies are reading and writing. So I want to say, what are your favorite hobbies outside of that?
I am learning how to play guitar for the first time in my life. Yep. I'm about a year into it. Exactly.
Are you good?
No, I'm not.
For you, I'm not asking do you feel like you're getting good?
I was trying to teach myself and do YouTube videos the first 9 months. And I realized thanks to your book, Who Not How, I need a who. And so I started taking lessons once a week and I'm getting massively better. I would still not remotely call myself good. But I'm getting massively better thanks to, the accountability and the help of an actual human sitting with me and playing with me.
Yeah, that accountability thing is big, right? When you can just watch a YouTube video and just not have to hold yourself accountable, that's one thing. But when you got to go and show up and show that you didn't practice, that's a whole nother ball game.
Totally. And he's got me playing super easy songs that kind of make me feel like I'm playing songs. And it's like, it's fun. It doesn't feel like as much of a chore. So then you pick it up more and it's like good self-fulfilling kind of cycle. Yeah.
All right. Good for you. Well, at the farm party next fall, I'll invite you and your guitar and you can play some solos by the fire.
Okay.
All right. If I were to ask your best friend what you're known for, what would that person say?
Being super thoughtful, like always remembering, the birthday or like that you were having a procedure done or check, just like thinking about people and checking in and remembering things for them. Yeah.
Do you have a life hack that you use to support that, or do you just have an amazing memory?
Reminders on my phone, a lot of them. Yeah.
right.
Just, hey, check in with so-and-so next Friday before her doctor appointment, or like, just, I definitely can't keep it here, but it's in my phone and it's triggered, the time, like at 8 a.m. remind me before I miss it, that kind of thing. I live and die by that.
Yeah. I love it. Good. Smart. What is the last gift that you've given somebody?
Some homemade limoncello that I made. And them giving out to some like neighbors and stuff for the holidays this year.
Nice. I like limoncello. That's a good gift. What's the process in making that? That's got to be a pretty painstaking process because there's got to be a decent amount of distilling that happens.
Yeah. So I'd never done it. This was my first time. I made like a big batch. So the painstaking part, I had to peel 70 lemons. Oh. It was horrible. And I could only stand to do like 10 a day or maybe 5 a day. So it sits for a month anyway in the vodka to like steep and whatever. And I just would kind of add more in batches like every day, because I just could not bring myself to do all of them in one sitting. And then my husband bought me a brand new clean bucket, because it's one thing to put the lemons in the vodka and whatever, but then you do this massive amount of simple syrup. And it had to just go in a huge bucket. That's how much I was making. So, but I got you can get such cute little glass bottles anywhere now. And I even got little personalized stickers that I ordered online that talk about like Tschida limoncello. And so by the time you do it all up and give it away, it looks really cool.
Cool. My buddy made moonshine. And I, of course,
quality tested it and it tastes fine. So
my buddy made moonshine one time and he just puts it in crappy jars, and he lives up by you. He lives, I'm going to leave him unnamed because I don't know if that's legal. And it was hellfire. So cheers to you for making something that actually tastes good.
Yeah, no, it definitely tastes good. I had to make sure to quality test it before I gave it out. It was my duty.
Yeah. Good for you. What was your favorite TV show growing up?
Oh my gosh. Saved by the Bell.
Really?
Oh yeah. I loved it. I mean, there's so many, but that is the one that kind of popped into my brain first.
Who was your favorite character on Saved by the Bell?
Kelly Kapowski, the cheerleader.
Right. There we go. Yeah. Shocker. Yeah. Good answer. If you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
I would be a yellow lab, because I think they're just the best dogs on the planet. We have a yellow lab, and I just think they're so loyal and sweet and friendly and outgoing, and they're just gold to me.
Yeah. Can we just say lab? Because I have a chocolate lab and I feel the same way about our chocolate.
Totally. Yep. You're right. It's just labs. I just happen to have yellows.
You can be yellow. That's cool. But I just wanted to qualify that statement at the end of there. All labs are just big lovers. Yeah. What is the average time? What is the average time that you go to bed and wake up?
Yeah, I go to bed really early. Like 9 is like about as late as I go to bed. Because I'm going to wake up at the same time no matter what. So if I'm up till 10:30, I just am like crabby because I know what's going to happen. And I wake up at like 5. Yeah. 7 days a week on my own. It's just kind of how I'm wired.
I went to bed at 8:45 last night.
Thank you.
Yeah. So unapologetic about it. Who cares? Sleep is too precious.
It's so true.
If you could be any color in that big 152 color Crayola crayon color case, what color would you be?
I love emerald green is kind of like my color. It's on my logo and whatever. I don't know why. It's such a rich classic color. And I feel like just so many good things in the world are green, So I would be some version of like emerald green.
All right. I love it. It doesn't surprise me that you had that one locked and loaded, ready to answer. So some people trip over that. You were ready to rock and roll. When I say the word mentor, who do you think of and why?
I think of my first boss at Carlson, who I worked for 5.5 years, which like doesn't happen anymore, right? That's unheard of, to have a same boss for that long. But she was my first boss. And, I was so young. She was kind of almost like a mom to me, but a mom I'd actually listen to because I thought she was pretty amazing. And so she just taught me so much. And we're still friends to this day.
You want to give her a shout out? What's her name?
Yeah, Shannon Coughlin. She's also credited in the acknowledgement section of my book that I published. I was co-author of a book that published earlier this year. So she gets lots of love from me. She really is like that person in my professional life.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. All right. Last question. How do you define happiness?
I am working on that. I think being present and content is happiness. And like I said, I am working on that, getting better, but not quite there.
Progress, not perfection. That's going to be one that I think monks and really hardcore meditators pretty much haven't figured out. Other than that, we're all just trying to get there.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. Okay. I want to make sure that people know how to get a hold of you. We didn't even talk about your book, so I want you to be able to share where people can get your book. Like we're just peeling off the layers of this Stef onion. And so I want to make sure that there's all these different ways for people to connect with you. And if they want to get to know you better or even lean into some of the services you provide, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I live on LinkedIn. So that's a good way. I'm Stef Tschida out there. And then I've got, both of my businesses have websites. So cheetahcommunications.com, mncollegeessaycoach.com. But really, if you look me up on LinkedIn, I'm always paying attention to that, and I can help point people any direction they want to get. There's info about the book out there.
Good. I'll say, I'm going to make sure that we put in the show notes, links to your LinkedIn profile, links to your website. If there's a way that I can get a link to your book, I'll put that in there so we can put people in that right direction. Tschida is spelled Tschida, not the animal. So I just want to make sure that it should be a no-brainer, but I just want to make sure that people know that.
And then I'm Stef with an F, so I'm really just difficult all around. STEF. Yeah.
Well. Original, I'll say. So I'll tell you, I'm so thankful that our paths have crossed and that you're a member of our community that we're building, because you're such a valued member, and you bring so many good things to what we're building and the greater business community. And I'm so happy to have you on this show today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Aaron. It's such an honor to be kind of in cohort with you. So thank you for everything you do for all of us. It's amazing.
Awesome. Well, on behalf of Stef Tschida, Stef with an F, this has been the Power of Nine podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Eggert, and I want to thank you for the privilege of your time. Cheers.